Close your eyes and strip away everything you believe defines your modern existence. Strip away the constant, electric hum of your smartphone. Strip away the high-speed fiber optic cables, the endless sea of social media notifications, the daily traffic, the artificial lights, and the heavy, compounding anxiety of an unread email inbox. Step backward through the chronological fabric of time. Not by a generation, not by a century, not even by a millennium. Step backward 50,000 years. You are standing in the absolute, crushing darkness of prehistoric Earth during the Pleistocene epoch. The temperature is plummeting into a brutal winter freeze. The predatory shadows of the wild press tightly against the periphery of your vision. Your only line of defense against the terrifying unknown, your only source of warmth, life, and security, is a single, roaring fire. As you lean forward to stoke the embers, a sudden, unpredictable gust of wind shifts the column of air. It sends a thick, blinding, choking cloud of whitewood smoke directly into your face. Your eyes sting and water. Your throat tightens. Your lungs burn. But then, something extraordinary happens. Somewhere, at some completely unrecorded, anonymous moment in our deep evolutionary past, one of your ancestors stepped directly into that cloud of stinging smoke, took a deliberate, deep breath, and asked themselves a question that would alter the course of human history forever. What if I did this on purpose? This is not a story about modern cigarettes. This is not a lecture on the global tobacco industry, mass-market consumerism, or the health warning labels printed on the back of a cardboard box. This is the story of one of the absolute oldest, most profound, and most deeply misunderstood behavioral traits our species has ever developed. We are going to explore the exact evolutionary and cultural crossroads where human beings cross the boundary from merely fearing the destructive power of fire to intentionally inhaling its volatile chemical essence. Because here is the hidden truth that modern history textbooks completely fail to mention. Smoking did not begin with the establishment of transatlantic colonial trade routes. It did not originate with European maritime explorers, capitalist tobacco plantations, or even the historical dawn of organized agriculture. The primal, undeniable drive to pull burning smoke deep into the respiratory recesses of our bodies is hardwired into human nature at a neurobiological level so profound that it entirely predates human civilization itself. Tonight, we are breaking down the mind-bending evolutionary science, the lost archaeological discoveries, the sacred spiritual traditions, and the ancient medical systems that reveal how a simple, accidental breath around a prehistoric campfire transformed into a multi-trillion-dollar global phenomenon. This is the journey of how smoke became the fourth biological drive of mankind. To truly uncover the genesis of smoking, we must first examine the genesis of controlled fire. And that requires us to look at an ancestor who wasn't even classified as a modern human. Deep within the northern cape of South Africa lies an immense, yawning geological marvel known as Wonderwork Cave. Over decades of painstaking, meticulous archaeological excavation inside this ancient cavern, scientists unearthed something that shattered our understanding of prehistory. Buried deep within the subterranean earth layers were microscopic accumulations of plant ash and thousands of highly fragmented, charred animal bones. The spatial distribution of the ash was clear, unmistakable, and mathematically precise. This was not the chaotic, random aftermath of a forest wildfire or a lightning strike that had accidentally breached the cave. This was a contained, sustained, and deliberately managed hearth, kept burning through intentional human effort deep inside the absolute safety of stone walls. The scientific dating of this geological layer? Roughly 1 million years ago. At this distant point in our planet's history, Homo sapiens did not exist. The hominids tending to these flames were Homo erectus, our ancient, heavy-browed, thick-boned evolutionary ancestors. They possessed significantly smaller cranial capacities than we do, larger teeth, and absolutely zero concept of language, writing, or society. Yet, for hundreds of thousands of consecutive generations, these early hominids spent their lives huddled closely around fires. They relied on them to ward off apex predators. They used them to cook raw meat to fuel their growing brains, and they slept beside them for warmth. Consider the profound biological implications of this lifestyle. For over 1 million years, our evolutionary lineage lived, slept, socialized, and reproduced in an environment that was constantly, systematically thick with combustion smoke. Our lungs adapted to it. Our eyes developed a resilience to its irritation. But far more importantly, the smoke they were breathing in day after day was not always pure, sterile wood smoke. When you subject organic plant matter to the process of thermal degradation or combustion, you do not merely release carbon dioxide and water vapor. You initiate a highly complex, chaotic thermodynamic reaction that unlocks a massive cocktail of volatile chemical compounds. When ancient hominids gathered dry wood, brush, and wild herbs from the surrounding landscape to feed the hearth, they were inadvertently tossing psychoactive plants into the flames. Plants loaded with natural alkaloids, aromatic terpenes, and primitive cannabinoid compounds. Imagine a group of exhausted, stressed Homo erectus hunters settling down around the cave fire after a brutal day of survival. Someone throws a bundle of dried wild brush onto the embers that happens to be an ancestral variant of the cannabis plant or a wild, nicotine-rich Nicotiana strain. As the leaves ignite, these highly potent molecules do not simply disappear. They vaporize, ride the rising thermal columns of smoke, and fill the enclosed air of the cave. The hominids breathe it in. Within seconds, these airborne molecules cross the alveoli of their lungs, enter the bloodstream, and bypass the blood-brain barrier. Suddenly, the campfire was no longer just a source of physical heat. It became a source of unexplainable, profound neurological euphoria, intense muscle relaxation, and altered sensory perception. They did not plan it. They had no understanding of neurochemistry or botany. They simply sat within the smoke, inhaled, and felt an unprecedented wave of mental peace wash over them in a hostile, unforgiving world. This was the true, accidental dawn of smoking. Now, a scientific skeptic might ask, is this just a compelling, romantic theory, or is there hard, undeniable biological evidence to back up the claim that humans are evolutionarily predisposed to smoke plants? To find the answer, you look inside the biochemical architecture of your own brain. Modern neuroscientists have established that the human brain possesses an incredibly intricate, highly specialized network of receptors explicitly designed to interact flawlessly with plant-based cannabinoids and alkaloids. But these receptors did not magically appear out of thin air because modern humans discovered recreational substances. They are a core component of our endocannabinoid system, a deeply embedded, ancient internal biological network that regulates our mood, memory, emotional processing, appetite, sleep, and pain thresholds. The deep evolutionary mystery here is the sheer, flawless chemical compatibility. When a prehistoric human first inhaled the vaporized smoke of a burning cannabis or tobacco plant, their central nervous system was not confused. It did not experience the molecule as an alien, hostile toxin that needed to be rejected. Instead, the organic plant molecule fit with absolute, microscopic precision into the biological lock of the human brain receptor. It was a biochemical phenomenon so perfect that it was as if the human brain was built to receive it. This undeniable biological reality forms the foundation of what anthropologists and psychopharmacologists call the intoxication hypothesis. In the 1980s, a visionary psychopharmacologist at UCLA named Dr. Ronald Siegel advanced a radical, groundbreaking thesis. He argued that the relentless pursuit of altered states of consciousness is not a modern cultural vice, a psychological defect, or a product of societal decay. Instead, he systematically classified the drive for intoxication as a fourth biological drive, a foundational evolutionary force operating with the exact same biological urgency as our primal impulses for hunger, thirst, and sea. And the undeniable proof of this hypothesis is scattered across the entire animal kingdom. The natural world is absolutely saturated with deliberate, drug-seeking behavior. In the vast, sun-drenched plains of Africa, older, experienced elephants will purposefully navigate across miles of treacherous terrain to locate marula trees. They wait for the fallen fruit to ferment under the hot sun, creating a highly potent alcohol, and then gorge themselves until they are completely, visibly intoxicated staggering through the wilderness. In the frozen, brutal expanses of Siberia, wild reindeer actively and aggressively seek out the bright red Amanita muscaria mushroom, a fungi containing massive levels of hallucinogenic compounds. Because these psychoactive molecules pass through the mammalian kidneys entirely intact without losing their potency, these reindeer have been systematically observed engaging in fierce, violent battles within the herd to drink the urine of other reindeer who have consumed the mushroom. They are actively engaging in drug recycling in sub-zero temperatures. If wild Arctic reindeer are willing to fight for psychedelic urine, and African elephants will trek for miles to consume alcohol, we must finally come to terms with a profound truth. The evolutionary drive to escape baseline reality is not a human invention. It is an ancient, deeply embedded biological imperative. And for early humans, the discovery of fire provided the ultimate, high-speed chemical vehicle to achieve that escape. Smoke required no complex brewing processes, no long-term storage, and no agricultural cultivation. It required nothing more than a single spark, a dry leaf, and a deliberate breath. To trace how this raw, primitive biological impulse transformed from a chaotic campfire accident into a highly structured, unyielding pillar of human culture, we must cross the vast waters of the Atlantic Ocean to the untouched continents of the pre-Columbian Americas. Long before European wooden ships ever cast their shadows on western shores, tobacco, a plant belonging to the highly diverse genus Nicotiana, was completely and utterly unknown to the civilizations of Europe, Africa, and Asia. In the Americas, however, tobacco was not merely a plant. It was the absolute spiritual and cultural axis upon which human society rotated. When Christopher Columbus first stepped onto the white sand beaches of the Caribbean in October of 1492, his personal journals recorded a cultural phenomenon that left his crew in a state of absolute, paralyzed bewilderment. He penned detailed descriptions of indigenous men and women walking through their villages holding small, smoldering cylinders of tightly rolled, dried leaves. They were intentionally inhaling the thick, pungent smoke deep into their chests, allowing it to spill elegantly back out through their nostrils and mouths. To the heavily indoctrinated Spanish Catholic sailors, this looked like an act of literal, demonic possession. Within a matter of weeks, however, those exact same sailors were secretly trying it themselves. Because the neurochemical grip of nicotine on the human brain is immediate, powerful, and absolute. But the way the Western world would come to view tobacco was fundamentally, tragically broken compared to the way it had been utilized for thousands of consecutive years by indigenous cultures. In ancient America, tobacco was never, under any circumstances, used as a casual, recreational pastime. It was not a product to be bought, sold, and branded. It was a holy sacrament. Advanced chemical residue analysis conducted on ancient stone pipes recovered from archaeological sites across the southeastern United States has definitively proven that intentional tobacco smoking dates back at least 3,500 years in those regions alone. In the dense, fertile ecosystems of the Amazon basin, historical botanists believe the practice extends back to an astonishing 10,000 years, inextricably linked to the very birth of human plant domestication. To the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the tobacco plant was revered as an intelligent, powerful master spirit, a profound physical medicine, and a divine metaphysical bridge. A shaman or medicine man smoking tobacco was not taking a casual, mindless break to relieve daily stress. He was performing a precise, dangerous ritual designed to open a direct channel of communication between the mundane physical world and the vast, invisible realm of the gods and ancestors. The rising smoke itself was viewed as a living, breathing entity, a sacred, ethereal messenger that physically caught the whispered prayers, intentions, and grief of the tribe, lifted them smoothly up into the heavens, and brought back down vivid, prophetic visions to guide the community through crisis. Blowing tobacco smoke onto a sick individual was considered a profound act of spiritual blessing, an expression of ultimate communal respect, and a legitimate method of energetic medicine. Because the plant was sacred, its consumption was governed by immense societal discipline, reverence, and boundary lines. You did not chain smoke a holy sacrament while your mind was distracted by entertainment. You did not consume it while rushing out the door or walking down a busy street. You approached the plant only when the weight of life demanded a profound alignment with the divine. The concept of utilizing tobacco as a casual, mindless, everyday habit is entirely a Western, European invention, and it represents one of the most devastating cultural misinterpretations in the history of human civilization. While the indigenous civilizations of the Americas were perfecting the spiritual and metaphysical framework of smoking, the rest of the ancient world was concurrently developing its own highly sophisticated, independent relationships with burning smoke, viewing it through the twin lenses of empirical medicine and advanced social technology. In 2019, an extraordinary team of archaeologists operating in the harsh, barren wilderness of the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah uncovered an ancient domestic hearth. This prehistoric cooking and heating fire had been left behind by hunter-gatherers roughly 12,000 years ago. As researchers painstakingly analyzed the ancient ash, they discovered a massive, highly concentrated cluster of charred seeds belonging to Nicotiana attenuata, a wild, incredibly potent native tobacco species. These seeds had not drifted into the fire by environmental accident. Their spatial density and location proved deliberate human manipulation. This singular discovery pushed back the confirmed timeline of human tobacco interaction by thousands of years, demonstrating that long before the invention of clay pipes, artistic pottery, or organized agriculture, nomadic humans were already using fire to extract the hidden chemical properties of plants. Meanwhile, across the ocean in the ancient, Golden Empire of Egypt, the inhalation of smoke was viewed as the absolute pinnacle of medical drug delivery systems. The world-famous Ebers Papyrus, an authentic Egyptian medical scroll dating back to 1550 BC, contains a vast array of detailed medical prescriptions instructing patients suffering from severe asthma, chronic coughs, and acute respiratory distress to intentionally inhale the smoke of deeply heated medicinal herbs, specifically the plant henbane. To a modern medical doctor, the concept of treating a damaged, inflamed lung condition by forcing the patient to breathe in burning plant smoke sounds like absolute, dangerous insanity. But from a historical, pharmacological perspective, it was a stroke of empirical genius. Ancient physicians lacked modern pill presses or hypodermic needles, but they possessed a profound understanding of human anatomy. They recognized that the respiratory system provides a direct, high-speed, unhindered highway straight into the human bloodstream. By subjecting a medicinal herb to controlled heat, they successfully vaporized its active, volatile alkaloid compounds, allowing the medicine to bypass the slow digestive tract and instantly reach the targeted, suffering internal tissues. It is the exact same, fundamental logical engineering that modern pharmaceutical companies utilize today to manufacture asthma rescue inhalers, medical nebulizers, and gaseous anesthesia delivery systems. The delivery mechanism survived. We simply stripped away the carbon combustion. In ancient India, over 3,000 years ago, the foundational, sacred medical texts of Ayurveda formalized this science into a highly regulated, deeply refined therapeutic practice known as dhumapana, which literally translates from Sanskrit as smoke drinking. This was not a casual hobby for the masses. It was a deeply sophisticated clinical therapy overseen by master doctors. Ayurvedic physicians carefully blended specific therapeutic herbs, such as pure turmeric, precious saffron, dried ginger, neem leaves, and highly valuable aromatic resins, and rolled them into tight, dense sticks known as dhamavarti. These sticks were ignited, and the patient deliberately inhaled the medicinal smoke through specialized, beautifully crafted, elongated pipes constructed from pure gold, silver, or fragrant sandalwood. The Ayurvedic texts laid out uncompromising protocols. They dictated the exact number of breaths a patient should take, the precise time of day the therapy should be administered, and a comprehensive diagnostic list of which specific elemental bodily imbalances, or doshas, the smoke drinking would correct. But far beyond the boundaries of physical medicine, the intentional inhalation of smoke served an even greater evolutionary purpose. It was an advanced piece of social technology. Humans are, at our biological core, deeply cooperative, hypersocial group animals. For millions of years of hominid prehistory, Our survival on this volatile planet depended entirely and exclusively on group cohesion. An isolated, lonely individual in the prehistoric wild was a dead individual. Only tightly bound, deeply trusting tribes survived the harsh realities of nature. Therefore, any behavioral ritual that could actively accelerate interpersonal trust, deepen empathy, and enforce mutual understanding among tribal members possessed massive, undeniable evolutionary survival value. When a group of ancient humans gathered together inside the dark, enclosed space of a cave or a ceremonial tent, lit a centralized fire filled with psychoactive, relaxing herbs, and collectively breathed in the communal smoke, their underlying brain chemistry systematically synchronized. Modern neuroscience has proven that shared, rhythmic ritualistic behavior forces a phenomenon known as neural alignment, rapidly increasing oxytocin levels, reducing tribal friction, and forging a powerful, shared group identity. The ancient ritual smoke circle was not a casual, aimless party. It was a vital piece of evolutionary infrastructure that welded human hearts and minds together, allowing them to step out into a dangerous world as a single, unbreakable force. And that brings us directly to the most tragic, deeply uncomfortable, and dark chapter of this epic evolutionary saga. The historic moment where the sacred, disciplined connection between humans, plants, and fire was utterly, completely shattered by the unchecked forces of industrial greed. When tobacco first exploded across the European continent in the 16th century, it was completely stripped of its spiritual boundaries and transformed from a sacred, disciplined tribal ritual into a runaway wildfire of commercial addiction. By the 1700s, European aristocrats were obsessively snorting powdered tobacco as an elite status symbol known as snuff. By the 1800s, massive, industrial-scale cigars dominated every public space in the Western world. And by the early decades of the 20th century, the invention of the automated, high-speed mass manufacturing cigarette machine changed the fabric of society forever. Suddenly, tobacco was no longer a natural, revered plant consumed within the protective boundaries of a sacred communal circle. It was engineered into a cheap, highly processed, chemically altered mass consumer good designed with a single, cold objective: to extract maximum financial profit from the human population by inducing total, unbreakable chemical dependency. In the mid-20th century, modern tobacco executives achieved what can only be objectively described as one of the greatest moral and ethical chasms in human history. Knowing full well, through their own internal, highly classified scientific research departments, that industrially manufactured cigarettes caused fatal lung cancers, systemic heart disease, and horrific physical degradation, they spent billions of dollars launching a global campaign of deception. They actively manipulated scientific data, hired corrupt doctors to endorse their products on television, and specifically engineered their advertising campaigns to target vulnerable children and teenagers. They went so far as to add hidden chemical compounds to the tobacco blends, such as ammonia, specifically designed to freebase the nicotine, forcing it to hit the human brain faster, harder, and leave the system more rapidly, thereby maximizing the cycle of addiction and corporate profit. Look closely at the terrifying, unbridgeable moral distance between these two disparate worlds. On one side, you have an ancient shaman in 500 BC, standing over superheated stones inside a ritual burial mound, reverently placing a sacred herb onto the heat to honor the spirits of the dead and heal the grief of his living tribe. On the other side, you have a modern corporate cigarette executive in a glass and steel skyscraper, signing off on a multi-million-dollar marketing strategy engineered to hook school children on chemical-infused vapor. Both individuals are utilizing the exact same primal mechanism: fire, a plant leaf, and the human breath. Yet, they share absolutely nothing else in common. So, when we return to our ultimate question, when did ancient humans start smoking? The honest, scientific, and evolutionary answer is that the behavior is so ancient, we will likely never pin down a single calendar date on a timeline. The physical archaeological evidence confidently takes us back 12,000 years, but the deep behavioral drive, the primal instinct that underpins the act of smoking, is as old as the human discovery of controlled fire itself. It is a habit born not out of simple, modern degeneracy or mindless addiction, but out of prehistoric human intelligence. The brilliant, cognitive leap that allowed our ancestors to look at the vastness of nature, connect cause and effect, and realize that a burning plant possessed the hidden power to alter the human mind and bring peace to the soul. The next time you happen to sit around a backyard bonfire, the next time you watch a thin, elegant trail of aromatic smoke rise from a burning stick of incense, or catch the crisp, nostalgic scent of wood burning in a fireplace on a cold winter night, take a slow, deliberate breath. Realize that you are reaching backward across hundreds of thousands of years of unbroken human experience. You are participating in a behavioral continuum that completely predates empires, languages, writing, and nations. You are doing what humans have always done since the very dawn of time. You are tending the fire, and you are breathing.